why does it seem like they never face any consequences? Hey, Survivor! Welcome to episode 140 of the Vibrant Survivor podcast. You ever wonder how narcissistic and toxic leaders often abuse their power without consequence? Yeah, this could be locally, nationally, even globally. It's the same playbook, and we're going to talk about it. But first, let's self-regulate with a 4-for-8 breathing exercise. If you'd like, we'll inhale for 4, hold for 4, and exhale for 8. Ready? Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How does it feel to breathe through the challenges of toxic leadership? Grab your notebook and pen, and let's dig in. Hey, Survivor! Welcome to the Vibrant Survivor podcast. Do you want to disconnect from a narcissistic or toxic situation and heal? Are you Googling how to identify a narcissist, narcissistic abuse, and boundaries? Are you feeling stressed and lonely while trying to avoid being sucked back in and lied to again? Hey, I'm Lesley. As a busy wife and mom, I fell for the lies and manipulations of narcissists. I wasted my time, talents, and money on users who kept moving the goalposts. I wanted real relationships and business opportunities and to enjoy life with my family. Instead, I struggled with anxiety, panic attacks, and insomnia, and I couldn't trust my body or anybody until I took a holistic approach to healing. In this podcast, you'll find tips for healthy living, trauma healing, and boundaries so that you'll have the freedom, confidence, and inner peace to respond, not react, after narcissistic abuse. Take a deep breath in, let it out slowly, and just relax. This time's for you. I told you about how earlier this year I attended a State Board of Education meeting where disciplinary action was going to be determined for 5 admins of one of the largest, if not the largest, school district in the state for their failure to act in a situation where a teacher had inappropriately touched and interacted with dozens of female students. And I personally gave a speech along with some other community advocates, mental health advocates, youth advocates, and the 5 admins were facing disciplinary action. They had already been through a professional practices advisory committee process, and their recommendation was discipline for each of the admins, and it varied from admin to admin depending on their role and all of that, but there was disciplinary action recommended for each one of them. So when it came time for the state board to weigh in and finalize the decision, they made the decision in a stunning upset that had never happened before to let the sole female admin go without consequences. And then they made the decision that the 4 male admins be tried, quote unquote, individually, as opposed to lumped together the way that they had been previously. It was beyond devastating, frustrating, and I cried in my car. I'm not going to lie. I felt like I had failed the victims, like, okay, did I say enough? Did I do enough? And this kind of speaks to a common frustration among survivors of narcissistic abuse and other toxic behaviors. And that is, why does it seem like they never face any consequences for their actions? And that was definitely the case in this case. So I thought of a few reasons why this happens or how they manage to, duck and dodge consequences. And it doesn't really matter what the organization is. It could be a school district, it could be a city council, it could be some other kind of government leadership, global leadership. We're seeing a lot of that happening right now. So walk with me. One thing is that they delay, distract, and deny. And this is classic Darvo. And I talked about Darvo in a previous episode. That's deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. So they'll play victim and aggressor at the same time and flip everything, flip all responsibility onto the victim. It's your fault. You're doing this to me. And you're attacking us. You're ruining our life, organization, whatever the case is. And this can be really frustrating and discouraging for victims. And say in the example of the school board situation, admins can do things like push meetings off, blow people off who are trying to meet with them to discuss real issues or raise concerns about something, or come to them with a real problem that exists, and they can, push them off, put them off, or maybe refer them to somebody else, kind of pass the trash, so to speak, when they don't want to deal with the situation. Also, they may stall investigations, or maybe even I've seen cases where they try to conduct their own internal investigation and just cut out law enforcement entirely and try to manage the narrative, control outcomes, things of that nature. And then creating public distractions. You got to uphold that image, right? And seem squeaky clean and flawless. And I've seen things like, say, for example, with a school district, talking about or emphasizing or highlighting all of the great things that are happening in the district. Oh, this school in the district over here, their football team went to state and they won. Or, hey, we've got, students going to these top Ivy League universities who are graduating. Whatever the case is, like they'll highlight those kinds of things and really play those up and either dismiss or try to downplay and suppress some of the problem areas and some of the ugly that's going on. And that can feel really invalidating too for victims. And, this idea of delaying, denying, and, attacking can really, and playing victim aggressor is a defense strategy at the end of the day. But it's important to not let it defeat you if you are on the receiving end of this type of behavior, these types of tactics. And, persevering, standing firm in your truth, getting support, tapping into a support network that includes advocacy, legal counsel, other community resources can really make a difference and help you to not just walk away defeated, which is kind of the idea. Like, I think a lot of times these types of organizations and the leadership that oversees them, they want people who are raising really like ugly issues or things that are perceived as ugly or problematic as far as their image is concerned. They want to suppress that. They want them to get tired, throw their hands up, and walk away. So do not be defeated. Also, they will weaponize their power. Individual leaders may abuse their titles, pull rank. They may abuse their authority and legal resources to intimidate victims and bully them into silence, maybe try to buy them off, or drag them through legal proceedings that can be draining financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and compromise even their health and well-being as a result, that toxic stress. And then also suppress opposing views or suppress truth tellers, advocates, dismiss them as being negative, toxic, or problematic, kind of flipping the script in that way. And they may use things like cease and desist letters or threats of legal action or retaliation. And they may use human resource manipulation. Try to, say, for example, in the case of this school district hearing, try to, introduce a woman into the situation to make it appear as though there's a sensitivity or an attempt to try to bring someone who can relate into the situation. But really, the bigger goal is to kind of rug sweep the whole thing and to not let it get out or not have it get out to the public or throughout the community. And that can be really challenging and feel alienating. They can maybe even use things like gag orders. So intimidation tactics like this are not truth. And it's important to stand firm in your truth, to, stay grounded in that truth. Things like journaling, talking to an advocate or a counselor or someone who is familiar with the education system, who can advocate, is so important. And finding that community support, whether it's through a church group or for trusted family or friends or other people in the community who maybe see the same things or see what you're going through or witnessed what you've been going through. And to not get discouraged, but to be discerning at the same time, learning how the system works and who the players are and kind of what the game is key as well. Also, narcissistic and toxic leadership in these types of narcissistic safe havens will surround themselves with enablers, flying monkeys, people who are in position to do their bidding so that they can keep their hands clean, and people who are loyal or just yes men or yes people who are going to support them no matter what, either out of fear or just kind of a blind loyalty, like they don't know what's really going on. And maybe there's a need that the organization is meeting for them or that leadership is meeting for them that's blinding them to the truth of how things are really being run. There may be toxic leadership circles, for example, that have a code of silence or promote a culture of silence even amongst their peers or amongst the leadership, to where the leaders themselves within the toxic organization feel afraid to speak up even though they see what's happening. They feel compelled to toe the line for the sake of their job or whatever the case is, their reputation. And also, they may punish whistleblowers and, with firing or putting them on leave or moving them somewhere else. We see that a lot where even in these environments, where school districts the administrators will move problematic teachers to other schools, like from school to school, in order to cover up or try to hide the truth about what has happened. And they'll let them go work somewhere else as a way to get rid of the problem, so to speak. But there's no consequences administered. They still have a job, they're still getting a paycheck, they're still getting their benefits, but they're just in a different place. Or they may pull them out of a school environment altogether and put them in some kind of an admin position instead of like firing them or, administering consequences. And they won't monitor them either. They may keep them in the environment where they committed the offense or where they were doing a poor job or what have you, and they won't even monitor their behavior and just kind of, give a verbal warning or like a slap on the wrist type thing and not follow through, and then it happens again. So it's important to know that they may have enablers within the toxic system, but that doesn't mean that what's happening is right or okay, and also that it won't happen again, especially if there's this code of silence and suppression of anyone who tries to point out the truth. Also, they'll rewrite the narrative. This could be through smear campaigns, just framing things in a false way, twisting facts, gaslighting community members, say in a school district, gaslighting families, gaslighting the community, and, smearing families who try to speak up, or victims that try to bring truth to light, or try to raise concerns, say go through the proper channels. They may, run smear campaigns or try to get them to doubt their reality first. But if they raise the bar, or raise the stakes and bring it up to like a higher level or escalate it, then they may try to smear them as being difficult, disgruntled, problematic, that type of thing, so that they won't get the validation or support that they need from the community or even from other victims, and be more alienated, isolated, and in an attempt to maintain the image of the toxic environment and toxic leadership that's overseeing it. And then in this case, it's important to keep records. It's important to document. And again, to stay grounded in the truth. And this could be, say, getting legal support, hiring an advocate or having someone advocate for you, journaling, keeping receipts, starting a paper trail and copying people, maybe even requesting records. And that is so important, especially when people try to rewrite the narrative, because a lot of times there's a lot of chatter going on behind the scenes. And I saw this in the school board situation, where when everything went to the Board of Education, there was a lot of chatter going on during that meeting where the board was supposed to be handing down this decision. And there was some deliberation that happened. There was emailing and texting that took place. And so one advocate actually thought to make an official request for text records, phone records, and email records. And lo and behold, in there, it revealed that there was all this collaboration happening to try to just make the whole thing go away. And the solution was to just, dismiss the one admin and then to delay justice where the other four were concerned. And meanwhile, they're all like, submitting to retire. Isn't that convenient? And then going on about their business and trying to retire, hurry up, get out of there to save face. And so on the heels of this landmark decision that had never been made before. So things to note. And then finally, they'll exploit broken systems. There are a lot of broken systems that we're all dealing with in our society from the top down. And these policies that have been put into place within these systems are not necessarily designed to protect survivors. They're not designed to even help perpetrators either of abuse and other crimes and things of that nature. There's a lot of corruption in these systems. It's more about who you know and how much money you have and pooling those resources and leveraging those resources to minimize consequences, and also to dismiss the claims of any kind of victims or anything like that, truth tellers, suppressing that. And then just loopholes. There's legal loopholes, and a lot of times narcissistic and toxic individuals, if there is a loophole to jump through, they will jump through. And that can be frustrating for victims, and it can be frustrating even for attorneys who are actually trying to do good in this world. So systems can fail to provide justice or make anyone whole, but your sanity does not have to fall by the wayside because of it. And sometimes it takes people skating through and retiring to bring in some new people who have fresh ideas or who are willing to create change and do better, and kind of getting those old regimes out of the way. And I'm seeing that as well, that the more of these folks, even though they're hurrying up and retiring to save face, they're still retiring. And so the regime that was in place for a long time is now shifting and changing and going away. Now, that doesn't mean that the system is fixed, but it means that there are openings that are being created for new people to come in who may be willing to do things differently and try to create change and listen to reason, listen to truth and the voices that are being amplified, and trying to distance themselves and the organization as they're stepping into power from some of those toxic situations from the past. Survivor, once you learn these shady tactics that narcissistic and toxic individuals use to dodge accountability, especially people in leadership positions, but just anyone really, you can spot the patterns of behavior over time. You can prioritize and protect your peace. And you can use your voice effectively, even when the system feels rigged. And by the way, if you need help identifying, navigating, or healing from any of this, I offer one-on-one coaching sessions if you'd like. Just go to closurecoachingsession.com. And remember, they'll pass the trash and cover their tracks, but truth wins when bravery claps back. Thanks for tuning in, Survivor. Your voice matters. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. If this podcast has helped you understand who and what you're dealing with, sharpen your discernment, and move forward on your healing journey, share it with another survivor. Help me help others by leaving a review for the show. And let's connect on social. Take a screenshot, share it in your IG stories, find and tag me at The Vibrant Survivor, and I'll share your post too. I look forward to connecting with you on IG and seeing you back here. You're not alone and you're not crazy. Know who you're dealing with, know who you are. Take care, and I'll meet you back here next week. Bye-bye.